The break itself really started off as pretty much a routine event. It was on a Friday afternoon, late Friday afternoon. We had a crew out working on some lines, and they noticed a small seep on this 27-inch pipeline. Started working on repairs of it and trying to isolate that part of the system. That event, though, suddenly turned to a very escalating type of an incident. The pipe itself began to rupture. The flows out of the pipe rapidly increased, and before we knew it, we were losing water at a very alarming rate out of our system. Normal procedure would be just to go in, start shutting valves, and start to isolate that part of the system there. Unfortunately, this part of the system, the valves didn't work, and we very rapidly found out that there were just not any valves in that area that allowed us to shut down that section of line to effect those repairs. Fortunately, we had a contractor in the town at that point in time that was working on some other projects that we were able to bring over to that particular area to begin installing some stops within the pipeline itself, since the valves didn't work, to try to isolate that section. From that point on, it was just one challenge after another. The stops were of a size, the pipe was of an odd size, so it made it very difficult to find the right type of equipment to stop the water flow in that pipe. Being an odd size pipe, we had to have special adapters built over a weekend trying to get that type of work accomplished. So what normally would have been just an afternoon type of an event to repair a leak very rapidly escalated into almost a week's worth of challenge on trying to keep water flow to the city and repair a pipeline at that same point in time. What had happened that really at that point in time is, due to the time frame that some of these facilities had been in service already, the lack of maintenance, of good routine maintenance on those, the system had reached a point where when an incident did occur, such as a leak, rather than being one that you could go out and manage in an organized manner, we'd reached a point what could be looked at as a catastrophic type event. Those are the events where you're not in control anymore. You're at the mercy of losing the entire water system, as we did for the city for a time period there, and of those other factors, those outside factors of having to wait on things to be made, to be manufactured, to be brought in to help you effect those repairs there. So unfortunately, the state of our system had reached that point where catastrophic events occurred and would be the norm for a while until we could effect some repairs. Fortunately, the city council had been looking at the improvements that we had been bringing forward to them, and had already started in motion to come up with a plan on how do we start addressing the capital improvements for the water system. That next spring, the plan was passed and enacted. Revenues were generated to start putting into place those things needed to address the improvements in the system. The first thing that was done was to replace some of those major pipelines in the water system that deliver water to large sections of the city. Along with that, valves were beginning to be installed within those sections of pipelines throughout the major feeders throughout the city, so that if an event does occur, you can bring it into a manageable state. You don't have that catastrophic potential. It is reduced at that point in time. A manageable event may be one where you still have a significant part of the city impacted by that event, but at least you're not losing the entire water system. The improvements that have been done have really got us to that point now where we can manage events. As we've seen recently within the last few weeks here, we had a 36-inch main break at the water treatment plant. If this had been in the 2006 timeframe, we would have been right back where we were. The entire system would have been shut down in order to effect that repair. With the new valves that had been put in, it became a manageable event. Unfortunately, we had a portion of the city that was out of water, but for a very short period of time. So we can see the results that have occurred by the implementation of the capital improvements plan with those improvements that we've been able to address to this point in time. The other thing that the improvements have brought about is the improvement of the quality of the service. One of the major factors that we were facing were the 2-inch water mains that were serving large portions of the city. Since the beginning of the program, over 334,000 feet of 2-inch mains have been replaced at a cost of about $15 million. but the quality of that service to the customer of the city has been so significantly improved that now we have a system that can be reliable not only for service, but the fire protection in those portions of town has also been significantly improved there. The second thing, the placement of the valves has now allowed us to start managing the system when we do have the breaks. Under the other part of the system, the wastewater side, similar occurrences were there just happening. A 30-inch wastewater main from Chadbourne Street to Bell Street collapsed, causing an overflow of wastewater into the Concho River. That was able to address with the capital improvements plan, has now been replaced with a new 42-inch line, which not only takes care of the problem, but provides the capacity for the system as the town continues to grow into the southwest area. So we've gone from the past of where the system was in a state of a catastrophic failures, to now we're into a state where we can manage the system and be able to address those events as they are coming up. What are we looking to in the future on is our next year or two? We probably have at least 2 more years of very significant projects to continue to address in the capital improvements plan as we continue to get our hands around and are able to manage the system. Part of that is right here at the water treatment plant. This past year we started with the first project of replacement of the main header mains coming out of the plant, which deliver water to all the different portions of the city. The next phase of that project now is to go in and to rebuild the main pump stations out of the plant, which deliver the water into the distribution system. Then the final part is the electrical system improvements at the plant here to replace the electrical components and to add emergency backup power generation to the facility, so if we do have the power outages, we can continue to provide water service to the city here. Under the wastewater side, we're seeing the same thing. We have another major line that will be replaced this next year. And the wastewater is probably the one that will continue for several more years as we start to catch up in that area on the replacement of the major projects here. So the capital improvements plan has really moved the city forward as far as being able to address those things that are so direly needed for the routine operation of the system. The one area that we're really looking at right now that is part of the capital improvements plan, and it is really a very important facet of not only the water system, but for the entire community itself, to the continued growth of the city and the vitality of the city, is looking at securing and development of the future water supplies for the city. For about the past 8 years, through our water advisory boards, through the council's direction, there has been a tremendous effort put forth to first of all, identify possibly water sources for the city. We're in the next phase now, after identifying those sources, evaluating those possibilities of water supply for the city and looking at what will it cost and what will it take to bring those sources online. The next phase will then be the actual implementation and construction of the improvements needed to bring that water supply sources online. And why is that so important? The city has been very fortunate throughout the years with all the surface water supply sources that we have, not only locally, but those that we've been able to be partnered in through O.H. Ivy Reservoir and E.V. Spence Reservoir for outside sources. With time, though, surface water supply sources, the dependability and the amount of water that can be derived from those declines with time due to the aging of the facility. So as we move forward in time, the needs and the requirements for the city not only grow because of the city's continued population increases, but because of the aging of those resources. One thing that has been very significant for us is the efforts through conservation of our water supplies. We saw in the last 5 to 6 years over a 30% decrease in the demand on our water supply system just through the conservation efforts of the citizens of San Angelo and those improvements that have been made on replacement of the infrastructure within the water system. Conservation has been really the life key that has been able to let us continue to provide a very good quality service through the water supply management to this point in time. But if we look to the future, if we're going to meet the needs of what this community needs as it continues to grow, new sources are the key to replace those which are being lost and to be sure that we have that which is needed for the growth of the community.